Still on the subject of Russia's war in Ukraine, and according to a new Reuters and Ipsos poll, support is falling among Americans of both major political parties for supplying Ukraine with weapons. The two-day poll, which closed on Wednesday, showed only 41% of respondents agreed with the statement. Do you think Washington should provide weapons to Ukraine? That number is compared to 35% who disagreed and the rest who were unsure. The latest figures are a potential worrying and warning sign for Kiev, which relies heavily on US arms to fight against a Russian invasion. For more analysis, let's cross now live to New York, where I'm joined by our senior US correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. Mike, it sounds bad, but just how drastic is it, especially as the same poll was conducted back in May of this year, where that 41% figure of agreement in sending arms was at 46%?
That's right. You got to look at the long-term trends rather than hold one particular poll in greater perspective than it should be. But if you look over the course of time, certainly public support for arming Ukraine and involving American finance in the war against Russia is dwindling. And as you mentioned, it's down 5 percentage points since May. Disapproval is up 6 percentage points. And when you look at the split between Democrats and Republicans, one would think intuitively that the Democratic support would hold fairly steady. But even on that front, it's down, according to this most recent Reuters Commission poll, 9 percentage points since May, from 61% down to 52% in the most recent poll. Republican support has slipped 3% since May. So it's really across the board a worrying trend, certainly for U.S. President Joe Biden and those in favor of supporting Ukraine for the long term. But A, Congress members don't always listen to their constituencies, and B, there still appears to be broad bipartisan support for arming Ukraine, both in the short and long term, within the halls of Congress. The problem for those proponents, it comes when you look at the hardliners within Congress who are oftentimes shaping the legislative agendas. We saw most recently that being played out in dramatic fashion, with hardliners ousting House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his perch and now awaiting a vote on a new House Speaker. So even though there is broad bipartisan support within Congress, it can always get gummed up in the works in terms of actually translating that into financial support, especially immediate financial support for Ukraine in their war against Russia.
And as you're mentioning, no secret that support perhaps is wavering, even at least among some of the hardliners. Biden is lobbying even harder now for Republicans to get on board and continue arming Ukraine. But also, to some extent, is it understandable? The war has gone on far longer than anyone expected it to. Is the West also expected to continue to supply arms and assistance indefinitely?
Well, that's the point, I believe, that President Biden is going to make. He hinted yesterday that he's going to be making a major speech on Ukraine. He's actually being briefed today on progress on the war by his new Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charles Q. Brown, on exactly where things stand at the moment. But the point Biden is going to make, I think, to the American public to sell this in the more long term is that, hey, and number one, this is a battle for democracy, for American values. And even though it's overseas, the point that he and others have been making for a long time is the more that Russia wins, the closer this war will drift toward America, and the more likely it's going to be that America will have to come, will have no choice but to come to their support of European allies based on mutual defense treaties that are already in place via NATO. And whether that actually is sold to the American public in a substantive fashion is yet to be determined. But I think Biden is not going to sit on his hands and watch support slip away without actually trying to make the case here. This is going to play out over the next month and a half in terms of a continuing resolution, or in terms of a government shutdown, or something more long-term budgeting for America. It's got to be played out sometime here in the near future in terms of whether America, through Congress, is going to continue to support Ukraine and give it what it needs here to fend off Russia, whether public support says it should or not.
And no doubt with any of those updates, we'll be coming live to you. For more analysis, our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim in New York. Thank you very much for that breakdown.